On today's episode of Locked on Wild, like Harry and Lloyd in Dumb and Dumber driving a third of the way across the country in the wrong direction, kind of feels like the Wild have gotten a little off track. Big question, though, is how did we get here?
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, Zach Zeman joins us as we try to answer the question, how did we get here? What happened during the season that led to the wheels starting to fall off where they currently are? We'll take a look back at the early start of the season that was, and we'll take a look at what is going to happen in the final 10 games of the season. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked on Wild. As mentioned, good friend of the show, Zach Zeman, is back with us here today. But Zach, the Wild are in a precarious spot right now. They currently have a 6-point lead on the Calgary Flames for a spot in the playoffs, a 2-point lead on the St. Louis Blues for the first wild card spot. And as we sit here tonight, Vancouver currently deadlocked with the New York Islanders. They are 7 points behind the Minnesota Wild also. So things are getting tight. Goals continue to not be scored. But how about we start and look back at the start that was? Let's get some good in here.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the start of the season for the Minnesota Wild. Obviously 18-4-4, got off to just a torrid start. And you look up and the Wild were leading the NHL in points at that brief moment, that one shining moment, to get a little March Madness themed here. And it obviously coincides with Kirill Kaprizov having the best start to his career. As he went, the Wild went through that through those first 26 games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, every Minnesota Wild season in the last probably 10 years I can remember has been an absolute roller coaster. But this one is just like, I don't even know how to explain it. There's been so much going on. The fact that this team was first place in the NHL, 18-4-4 at one point, it's just to now, like, as in recent games, just seeing the results of those and, you know, the uncertainty of so many things going on. It's the vibes have never been like this ever. I've never felt like questionable about this team. It's, you know, it's just definitely one of the craziest years I can ever remember. Yeah, this Wild team was the team coming out of the gates like that. And, you know, we were talking like, oh, here comes Washington that's playing in St. Paul tonight. The best two teams in the league are, you know, it's like, oh, Winnipeg's coming in, the best two teams. Like, and now it's just like you're kind of holding your breath watching this team skate around the ice, hoping they can score 2.5 goals a game. Like it's just a complete flip side. And it's just been a disaster to not sugarcoat it. It's been insane. I don't even know.
The way I'll piggyback off of the roller coaster theme, because this season definitely has been a roller coaster, but this feels like a roller coaster where somebody in front of you threw up on the ride and you just have to kind of sit in that for the duration. And you're like, well, now this is no fun. This is no fun at all. Like, I don't want to be on this at all. And it's just an extenuating circumstance that you happen to sit behind somebody who had a gigantic burger before they got on Wild Thing, and they ended up losing their lunch.
No pun intended. Wild Thing.
Yeah, see what I did there.
Oh man!
But like you look at the early part of the season, and even through the first 25 games of the year, Kirill Kaprizov had 17 goals. He had 25 assists, 42 total points. He was just on an absolute heater. but he was getting good help. Matt Boldy had 12 goals through the first 26 games of the season. He was above a point per game player. Marco Rossi had 9 goals in the first 26 games. That trio was doing a lot of really good things. Yeah, some other players got off to slow starts at the beginning of the year, but it was enough. Those guys scoring and the goaltending that the Wilds got right off the bat, that was enough to win them a bunch of games early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we remember like talking earlier in the season, like Kirill Kaprizov was in the Hart Trophy talks, but obviously those are so far away from, those are end of the season awards. And obviously we like to get ahead of ourselves sometimes, but that was a legit conversation of like, is Kirill Kaprizov a Hart contender, especially for the Minnesota Wild? And yeah, I mean, you lose a guy like him and several others. And obviously, don't get me wrong, this team gets put in such a tough spot to compete every night like this and face fully healthy lineups, and kind of defend your position in the standings, fending off the Blues and the Flames and now Canucks even. It's like, obviously it's so hard, such a hard position to be in, but it's truly hard to watch right now. Vibes are just off. The arena just feels empty. It's the anticipation of players coming back, if they're coming back, in the questions that fans are supposed to have and can have right now. It's like no one really knows what's going on, and no one knows the direction of this team at the moment. From starting the season like that and having those conversations to now not knowing what's going on, who's coming back, and if we're even going to make the playoffs is such a crazy difference. Yeah. And no other team in any sport other than the Minnesota Wild. You can't name me a different franchise that deals with it more than the Minnesota Wild.
Like I don't throw the term curse around lightly, but at what point do we rise above just a normal threshold of injuries and bad luck to where it's like, hey, some otherworldly force is at play here? We'll get to the actual injury numbers. Friend of the show, Brett Marshall, actually put together like, here's what the Wild have lost this season due to injuries. That's one part of the equation. Obviously, you would love to have those players in the lineup, but you got to win games with what you have. I heard John Hines on with PA on KFan earlier today, and still it was, well, the hope is that Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek can start to skate by the end of this week. But as far as a timetable for when they return goes, they still don't have one. They still don't know. Yeah. It's day to day. Zach, we've been day to day since the end of December.
That's such a good point.
With Kirill Kaprizov. Like, let's just talk about the timeline here for a second, because Kirill getting hurt and being out of the lineup is really I think the single factor that started to throw the wagon off the tracks. And even if you look at the record that the Wild have courtesy of StatMuse, the Wild are 18-15-2 without Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup this year. But they go from a team with him in those first 26 games, they were over 3 goals per game. In the 46 games since, they are averaging 2.35 goals per game. So it's not crazy to say that Kirill Kaprizov is worth basically a goal per game, not only in the scoring department, but in generating those opportunities. And this all started after Christmas.
Yeah.
This all started with, I remember it vividly, coming back from Christmas, getting ready for that first game back after the Christmas break. And at morning skate, all of a sudden it's like, hey, Kirill's not here. And you're like,
yeah,
okay, that's kind of weird. And then we got word that he's a little banged up and was going to miss a game he's day to day just to try to kind of get himself right. And immediately I'm like, that's not great. And he missed 12 games at that point. came back in for 3, didn't look like himself,
No,
and then it was
not at
surgery
all.
time.
It was bad when he came back. Like, you could just tell something was off. You said 18, 15, and 2 without Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup. You could say, oh, they've won 3 more games and, got points in the 2 overtime losses or whatever, but that's 35 games.
Yeah.
Without your best player and, at the time, your Hart Trophy candidate with a couple other players like McDavid. That is the biggest impact that this team has faced this year. It's like there's no doubt about it, and it's just like, sure, you can say the record's fine, but he's missed 35 games along with many others. It feels like there's a new lineup every single night, and it's a complete disaster. And the handling of the day-to-day is just like fuel to the fire. It just keeps adding uncertainty and frustration between fans and the staff of like, how do we really not know what's going on?
Yeah.
You don't go to the doctor with an injury and they don't know. They tell you, I don't know when you'll be back. You'll be day to day for 8 weeks.
So
like,
true.
It just, like we were talking about that before we hopped on, but it doesn't make sense. Like, I've never seen another franchise deal with an injured player and not have an exact timetable for return. And it's happened with 5 different players this year with the Minnesota Wild. And it's just a fact. Like, it's kind of frustrating to see, but and obviously injuries are terrible, but we never know, but at least there's gotta be an answer somewhere. And it's just not getting relayed with the fan base and media. It's really tough.
And I get it too. Like, it could be a situation where it might be 4 weeks or it might be 6. Well, then say it's 4 and we'll evaluate in 4 weeks and we'll go from there. But we have been hearing, and this is not an exaggeration, we have been hearing day to day for Kirill Kaprizov since he was pulled out of the lineup the first game after Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, and
like,
and
if
now Marcus Foligno is another one now who was out. He missed 1 game. It was day to day. He's now missed 3 games and is still out day to day.
It's actually pretty funny. I thought about that last night during the game against the Golden Knights, and I was like, I've come to the realization that I've accepted not knowing anything about Kirill Kaprizov's and many other players' injuries, and I literally forgot that they said Foligno was day to day until he didn't play like last night. I was like, wait, wasn't he day to day like 3 games ago? And then I literally caught myself and I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening again. Like, it's just a nonstop cycle. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Every player's day to day, but they miss weeks, if not months. It's really, really interesting. Like, can you imagine bringing like a fan to the game, brand new fan? He goes, oh, who are our best players? You go, yep, Kaprizov, Brodin, Ek, all these guys. All the guys on the, the wall, like when you enter the stadium, they're all on like the glass windows. All of those guys are injured. Like, you can literally like see it. It's insane. And, it's like, oh, what are they hurt with? He's like, I don't know. It's like, oh, do we at least know when they're going to be back? No, we don't know. Like, that's a crazy conversation. And that's definitely happened this year with many fans at the rink. When they're sitting down, like intermission, and you go, oh, where are our best players? Yeah, we don't know. And I mean, I don't know, like, if there's any, I don't know. I'm kind of just losing it.
Get in line is what I say.
I'm trying to make sense of it and trying to put it in reality of like, just like human reality of what's going on. And it's so weird.
Because it's like this, and I'm so glad that we got to this point, and I've got the actual like man games missed stat coming up, but I think that's what has made. I think it's what has made this season so frustrating, is that it just has continually been like we're gonna get him back, 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 and you just not knowing. Like, I wouldn't do that to my work. If I was ill, I wouldn't say I'm going to be day to day. And then 3 weeks later, it's like your boss is like, hey, just checking to see how you're feeling. And you're like, it's just not where we need to be. So my official status is day to day. Like, you're not doing that. You're not doing that in real life. You're just not.
The biggest part of the year that I think about the most is the trade deadline and how it's, you've been dealing with these injuries heading into the deadline, and what's going on with your players. And when you're saying they will be back in time for the playoffs and you purposely don't make moves, but you still fast forward to today, right? So you don't make any moves in the deadline. Clearly that tells me that, okay, we're actually going to get the good guys back. Like, X going to be back. We're going to have a good lineup with probably 5 games left in the regular season, and we're going to be good for, postseason play. Okay, that's such good news. But as of we're talking right now, there's a couple of games left, and there is nothing. There's no progress on any. There's no reports. The report we got was they're going to skate soon. That's like the report is, they'll be on the ice soon, which is what they've been saying since December. They will be back soon. But it's the same update. If you just read between the words, they just switched it. And I don't know. I mean, honestly, looking back at it, if I'm where the Wild are right now, and if I'm Bill Guerin and I look back, I'm like, dang, I didn't make any moves to try to make this team better so we can actually stay afloat for the playoffs, and then we'll get our guys back. It's crazy. Like, the Wild have an 88% chance to make the playoffs right now, but I honestly think that number is way lower, especially with last night's results, the Blues dominating, the Flames winning in overtime. These are 2 hungry teams that are healthy rosters enough. The Blues have been playing as the best NHL team since the Four Nations tournament. The Avalanche are also on that list. And, the Wild, who didn't make any moves, are nowhere to be found. They're actually one of the worst teams since it's just the logic and math is not mathing at the moment.
No, it isn't. Because we'll hit you with the statistics of the 2 players that the Wild did expend assets on at the deadline. Because I can count on one hand. I could cut 2 fingers off and count on one hand the number of points that those guys have since the trade deadline. Now, I'm not going to do that, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the man games lost. And, Zach, this season could potentially do something I feel like you should never do, which is squander a goalie goal. We're going to talk about that as well, because does that not feel like that was like 2.5 years ago?
It
at
does.
This point,
and it doesn't even feel like it was this year or this season.
Well, we'll talk about it. We got a lot more to get to here as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized that your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored job posts put your post at the top of the page and help you find the right candidates faster. Indeed is fantastic. I think everybody knows at this point that I was in a pretty robust job search over the summer. My favorite part was that when I was looking for a particular position, Indeed would put those sponsored posts up at the top of my search so that I saw them right away. And then what Indeed does is it lists the qualifications they're looking for, and it'll say, hey, are you fluent in this? Are you fluent in software editing, video editing, whatever it may be? And if you click yes or no, they'll add it to your profile, almost like tying 2 pieces of string together. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Want to take this opportunity to encourage you to leave reviews on your favorite audio platform. whether that be Apple Podcasts or Spotify, what have you. We appreciate the feedback. So whether it be a 1-star or a 5-star, we appreciate everybody taking the opportunity to give some feedback. So audio versions, as well as on YouTube, likes and subscriptions are what drives the bus there. Zach, I think this may be titled as the episode that Seth finally cracked, because like just looking at all this stuff, listen to some of these numbers, courtesy of our friend Brett Marshall over at the Soda Pod. If you have not had a chance yet to check out Wildly Informed, make sure to do so. Great kind of balance between analytics, statistics, and the eye test. So make sure to check that out if you have not already. Listen to this. Minnesota Wild. Now this was before the game yesterday, so there were additional games added to it. There are a few players out of the lineup. The Minnesota Wild have lost 202 man games and counting to injuries and suspensions this season. Considering those injuries plus $14.7 million in dead cap space, it is truly remarkable that they're in a playoff spot. Here are some notes in the midst of 202 games lost due to injury. 17 players have missed at least one game due to injury, illness, or suspension this year. There are 17 instances of a player missing 5 consecutive games or more due to injury or suspension. There are 8 instances of a player missing 10 or more consecutive games. Only 3 players from the opening night roster have played in all 71 games so far this season.
Oh, that's a good trivia question.
Do you know who? Can you guess who?
I can for sure get 2. I think one of them's Boldy.
Yep.
Is another? Oh, this might be bad. Faber?
No.
Oh, he did miss. Oh, dang. Johansson?
No.
I don't know. All right, I'm just shooting now.
Boldy is one. Marco
Boldy for
Rossi is
sure.
another.
Rossi. Totally overlooked him.
Freddie Gaudreau.
Dang.
That's the third. So those are the 3. Those are the 3 players that have played in all of the games so far. This next one is the one that I think just sent me. The Wild have played with a healthy roster for 6
Oh, man.
total games this year. And November 10th was the last time the entire opening night roster played a game together.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. And they lost. They lost that game to Chicago, actually.
Yeah, they did.
Wow.
So there's a lot to break down here. And again, big shout out to Brett Marshall for putting all that together. That paints a pretty grim picture. And so on one hand, this is a disgusting amount of injuries.
Yeah.
Let's acknowledge that. But the games don't just stop. Like the NHL doesn't say, you know what, you guys have been through a lot this year. Let's give you a month off and then we'll resume your games once you've gotten everybody back healthy. And the problem has been that in a lot of instances, the players that you have filling those spots in the lineup just aren't NHL guys. Like this lineup is littered with players that are bottom 6 on a playoff team. Marcus Johansson going and playing a top 6 role with players out of the lineup. Although to be fair, even if the team was fully healthy, it'd still be in the top 6. But like guys like Brendan Gaunce, who has come in and just is kind of there. Devin Shore, a guy who has played 48 games this season for the Wild and has 4 total points. And then you make waiver claims for guys like Declan Chisholm and Vinny Hinostroza, who have immediate impacts because they're quality depth pieces that are just better. Like I think quality depth is probably a little strong in Vinny Hinostroza's case, but they're better than the depth that you have. And that's a big problem. But we also got to talk about the players that are still in the lineup. When they go into slumps, there is nobody picking up the slack.
They've also been in slumps since all these injuries. Like, you remember that Pittsburgh game? Horrendous. That, Canucks game before the Pittsburgh game, the Blues game at home.
Yeah.
Like, it's really tough. I think it's like you look at Rossi and Boldy in these situations, and of course, I understand that they have lack of players around them that they're not used to. The skill level is obviously dropped because it's supposed to be to the players who are injured and not playing. But like at some point, you gotta just score. Like, you gotta make some impact. Like, do anything you can, and it just hasn't happened. Like, Gustafsson is still on it, and he has no one in front of him realistically to help him out, and he's still the first NHL star of the week, like last week. It's just the top guys who don't have the players around him are not succeeding without him, and that just kind of does say a lot about the true colors. And I'm happy we got stories like Vinny Hinostroza. I think he's been really cool to see, in this time, and it's good for players like that to get a spotlight, and we can actually see what, if we can elevate them and like where to put them. And now we have the answers with the depth players of when the injured players now come back. But it is kind of interesting. It is really, really insane that this team is surviving and still in a playoff spot. They've maintained about like a 500 level a team, but also the position they were put in before this happened was the best team in the league. So it's like there's a lot going on, and it is really, really insane.
I'm going to use a very graphic metaphor to paint the picture of what's going on here for all the Civil War fans in the mix. You are I don't know what rank, you're a corporal in the army during the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg, and you take a musket shot to the midsection. You don't immediately perish, so you're running through the battlefield, dodging. Stuff back then was insane.
Yeah, that's like, actually the wars. Oh my gosh.
You've got people drumming in line with soldiers, and cannonballs are just shooting past their heads. Anyway, this isn't Locked On Civil War, but you take a musket ball, you get shot in the midsection, and you're running off of adrenaline for a while. But we're getting to the point now where you are starting to realize I've lost a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And this is starting to get to where it might not work out. Listen to these extended numbers for a couple of key pieces for the Minnesota Wild since December 7th. Matt Boldy in his last 46 games, his first 26, he had 27 points. He had 12 goals. He was shooting 12.4%. Over the last 46 games, Matt Boldy is shooting 7.4%. He has 11 goals and 33 points in 46 games. So his shooting percentage has dropped by 5% in the last 46 games. Marco Rossi has 13 goals in that span. But how about Brock Faber, too? Brock Faber, over his last 42 games, he has 10 points. He has 4 goals. He's shooting 6.8% and is a minus 14 in the last 42 games. So whether it be slump or I think one that people are pointing to a lot, and I don't think it's inaccurate, starting to get a little worn down.
He's also played half of the games. Like half of the time per game, every game. So he's on the ice for everything, pretty much. And it's tough. It's just so tough.
But with the hierarchy disheveled, with Kirill Kaprizov out of the lineup, if those players don't not only maintain their level of production but elevate, you're in a bad spot. And we're seeing it play out in real time because you can't expect a guy like Marcus Foligno to give you 22 goals. Can he get you 10 to 15? Sure. But you can't expect him to be a 20-plus goal scorer. It's not who he is.
Yeah.
At this point, double-digit goals for Marcus Johansson would be a pleasant surprise. But these are the players that they're having to rely upon to get them the goals. The Ryan Hartmans, the Marcus Johanssons, the Freddie Gaudreaus, the Matt Zuccarellos, and Zuccarello is a goal scorer. Like that's what he does. So it's not out of the question to ask him to elevate a little bit. But the other guys, that's not the type of players that they are. And it's a lot of pressure to put on their shoulders.
It just translates to, power plays too, penalty kills as well. It's like those special teams struggle more than I've ever seen with all these injuries. I mean, Vegas probably got 2 goals in the first 20 seconds of each power play they had yesterday. It's like insane. And then the Wild gets 0 shots per power play. It's so I don't know how this team is still in a playoff spot. It really does. Like, I don't think that this team can make the playoffs if people don't come back. I'm about ready to just accept not making the playoffs at this point. It's not their fault. Like, it's, they've been riddled with injuries all year, and the handling of it is certainly not the best. And we've kind of seen that, especially it's like we've seen the worst, and it's probably not going to get better if no one comes back.
And if you don't get, you have to, in order to get this back on track, you got to get Matt Boldy pulled out of the muck. You got to get Marco Rossi back to a consistent goal scorer. Matt Zuccarello has to take the lead. Like, I'm just going to say that. And he does in the off the ice stuff in terms of being accountable after games like the Vegas game. So I will always applaud him for that, for being willing to step in front of the microphone and answer the tough questions. He needs to lead on the ice too. And just say, and he could be doing this behind the scenes. We don't have access to that. He could be doing it behind the scenes, but if he leads, those guys will follow.
Yeah.
But that's what it's going to take to get this. That's what it's going to take to get this back on track. We're going to look at the final 10 games here in a second.
Yeah.
And we'll look not only at the Minnesota Wild's final 10, but we'll look at St. Louis's final 10. We'll look at Calgary's final 10. And we're going to look at Vancouver's final 10. Because of the 32 teams in the NHL right now, the Minnesota Wild have the 9th hardest remainder of the schedule. So that is coming up as we finish today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Trade Coffee. If you are like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee. I am somebody who likes to just fill it up, make it a mocha or an espresso, whatever it needs to be. Not a full black coffee person myself, but still got to get that kick in the morning. I got tired, though, of settling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. Lo and behold, that's where Trade comes in. And let me tell you, their coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they will hand pick the perfect match for you. They start you off with a quick quiz, and in under 60 seconds, you get matched up with a roast that was fresh, smells incredible, and tastes even better. So, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedonnhl for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/lockedon NHL. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. We will have a postcast after the Washington game for you. I don't think Alex Ovechkin is going to score 6 goals, so we probably don't have to worry about the record being broken, although it would have been great to see that happen in person. But, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. We'll just have to this will be interesting to see if ESPN does like the actual like cut-ins like they used to for the home run chase, where they'd say, all right, we're gonna break into what we're currently airing to give you Mark McGuire's at bat as he steps to the plate trying to hit his 70th home run of the season. Those are so cool. I wish they would go back to doing that kind of stuff. But Zach, we're gonna finish today's show, which I hope I hope today's show has acted as a little bit of kind of a let's get real talk with this team right now. I know there are plenty that are hanging on to once we get Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek back, things will change. I'm not going to fault anybody for that. My frustrations air with a lot of how this has been handled. And it just beats you down. Like it just beats you down day after day, not having any idea what's going on. Yeah. And just having to continue to say, well, this could have been a game they won if they were at full strength, but we're down to the final 10. And the final 10 include Washington tomorrow, New Jersey on Saturday, then at New Jersey on Monday. At the New York Rangers on Wednesday, at the New York Islanders on Friday the 4th, home against Dallas on Sunday the 6th, home against San Jose on Wednesday the 9th, at Calgary on the 11th, at Vancouver on the 12th, and home against the Anaheim Ducks on the 15th. Before we move on to the rest, Zach, I see...
Oh, 5.
I see probably 4 or 5 wins in the final 10. Washington is an incredibly difficult team. I just don't see the Wild, unless somebody has a heater. I don't see the Wild being able to beat Washington. I think they split with New Jersey. Mm-hmm. That New York Rangers game scares the death out of me because in New York is a problem for any Minnesota team. The New York Islanders are kind of a mess, but still in a postseason spot. So I picked that as a win. Dallas at home, that's a loss. San Jose at home is a win. The season's going to come down to the Calgary, Vancouver games on the road. And with the team that's already struggling to score goals, Calgary does not allow much of anything at all. I think the Calgary game is a loss. The Vancouver game is very winnable. Mm-hmm. And then you play Anaheim on the 15th. But what have we seen from the Wild in some of these back-to-backs lately is a lot of times they get kicked in the second game.
Crumble.
So 1, 2, I see. So 4 wins in the final 10 for me.
Yeah. We're just dealing with a lot of what ifs. It's like if the Wild continue to lose, that Flames game is going to be the game of the year.
Yeah.
It's going to be who gets the second wild card at this point. Yeah. I mean, if we go back to the Road Warriors type of the season that we were having, and probably still are because we haven't been on the road in so long, except for Dallas. I would hope there'd be more than 4 wins. It's just so hard. This team has been put through a lot. It seems to be at its worst right now. And it's really hard to predict wins, but that Washington game tomorrow is, you just got to hope like the other teams play bad or they play down to us. And we can take advantage of that, but you just can't outright win a game like that. You really got to battle, head to overtime. It's like, it's going to be those kind of games wrapping up the season here. Luckily, we do get the Sharks and the Ducks win 2 out of the last 4 games of the year, which is like, okay, but also we're kind of playing like them right now. So you never really know what's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, the New York stand and, you head out west to Vancouver and Calgary. There's just a lot going on. It's really hard to predict games. I want to say 5. And the fact that, remember the good old days, like October and November, where we were like, they'd win 10 in the month. Let's go, Kirill.
Yeah.
Kirill player of the month. This team is on fire. Can they keep it going? And now it's honestly like we're holding our breath. We're monotone, like we're just chilling, and it's not okay.
Every win is met with nervous optimism, because like we saw last week, you beat the Kings. Kings is a good win.
Yeah,
you beat Buffalo and you beat Seattle, 2 of the more bottom feeder teams in the league, and you're like, are we back? And then you go to play Dallas and you play Vegas, and that's 2 losses back to back. And I think that's the most frustrating part, is that you look at that Dallas game. That was a pretty competitive game for the Wild, but you run into a lot of these contender teams and they have a really good goalie play. And that usually is enough to shut down your offense at this point. So it's just listen to the schedule for the other 3. So here's what St. Louis has the rest of the way. They play at Nashville tomorrow. They play at Colorado on Saturday. They host Detroit. Detroit is hideously bad right now. They host Pittsburgh. They host Colorado. Then they're at Winnipeg, at Edmonton, at Seattle, and then they host Utah to finish. 6
at most.
So
I counted through them, and I figured they would win one of those Edmonton games. Around there.
Well, and Edmonton is playing without Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl right now. So,
yeah, true. That's a very good point.
But
you mark the 2 Avs games as a loss. They're going to win one of those. It's like
that
they're playing. They are the best team in the league. They are the best team in the league right now.
Yeah,
and along with the Avalanche, and they're both in the Central Division, and they both have playoff spots currently. So that's just where we are.
And if they win 6 or 7 and we win 4, then there's your leapfrog in the wild card standings.
Yeah.
Here's what Calgary has the rest of the way. Calgary they host Dallas.
Nope.
Then they oh my God.
Is it San Jose?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay, there's one.
So
they've been really good recently.
Hopefully.
They have been. They've been chugging.
So they host Dallas Thursday, then they're at Edmonton Saturday, at Colorado on Monday, at Utah on Tuesday. So that's a dicey back-to-back. Monday, Tuesday. Then they host Anaheim on April 3rd. They host Vegas on April 5th. They are at San Jose on the 7th, at Anaheim on the 9th. They host the Minnesota Wild on the 11th. They host San Jose on the 13th. Goodness. They host Vegas on the 15th. And then they're at the Los Angeles Kings to close.
That's an easier schedule than I thought.
Yeah.
I guess this is why the Wild are at 88% currently is because if each team gets 5 wins, then it's just a push kind of thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you really got to take a point swing, like a huge losing streak for the Wild or the Flames to really lock in a spot. That's probably why that is why it's at 88%. But you really just don't know with the Wild. I mean, a 2-game losing streak, scoring 1 goal and giving up 8 is not okay. And that's what's been happening recently. And you just gotta hone it in. I mean, the Capitals and Devils stand off this homestand, and then it's all Armageddon towards the end. So good luck.
Well, like I said, it's going to come down to the last day of the season. You just know it's going to.
You know it's going to, and it's probably not going to go the way we want it, whether it's for the 2nd seed or the 2nd wild card or elimination.
And the funny part too is the Minnesota Wild, their last game is on the 15th. Calgary plays on the 15th and the 17th. So you may be in a situation where you're watching a game on the 17th saying, all right, if they lose, we're in. If they go to overtime, we're out. And if they win in regulation, we're out.
Oh, that's going to be. And it's against Anaheim at home. Ours is. But they play the Kings. That's actually such a good game to end on. Yeah. Kings Flames.
That's schedule makers are like.
Yeah, exactly. And then schedule makers also give the Blues the Predators 3 times in the last 10 games and expect the Wild to be like, oh yeah, that's acceptable.
Hideous. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but it has not been smooth sailing here for the last 46 games and counting. So we'll continue to keep you posted and updated on everything. We're going to do more of these types of check-ins on the other teams that are in contention for that wild card spot down the stretch. And tomorrow we'll have a bigger look at not only the Washington Capitals game, but the career of Alex Ovechkin, because turns out he enjoys playing the Minnesota Wild throughout his career. So that's coming up on tomorrow's episode. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, as always, and making Locked On Wild part of your daily routine. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.